Good morning, Service Alliance community. How
Good
is
morning.
everyone doing today?
Hello, Mike Carson. How are you?
I'm good.
Sounds like a great
Well,
way to start the day.
yeah. How was your weekend?
Oh, it was uh it was a weekend. Yeah. I got to do a little riding this weekend, so that was good.
Yeah.
I actually rode my bike. I have a Goldwing. I'm a winger, and then we just bought Shayna a bike in the fall to get her back on the bike. It's been 12 years or so since she's actually rode on her own. So got her a V-Star 1100 classic. Nice. My
Nice.
youngest son, Isaiah, he ends up riding it more than she does. He's got a sport touring bike. It's a YZF Yamaha or something like that. So, yeah. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Good?
Been fighting a cold, so I kind of been staying in, but
Yeah.
pretty good
Quit fighting
weekend.
it. Gotta quit fighting it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying a new coffee this morning. It's, of course, in my regular coffee cup, but it's called Pure Shrooms. So if I start tripping, and actually, I guess my son put it on there. It's literally called Pure Shrooms. Mushroom ground coffee with ashwagandha and chaga, whatever that is. So
Nice.
I thought, we're gonna try it this morning. So
Jason's doing shrooms on the grind. Grinding shrooms.
grinding shrooms on the grind. Yeah, I know about that.
Nice. Morning, Adam. Morning, Eddie.
Okay, yeah, it's not
Hope you
bad.
guys are doing good.
Tastes like coffee.
All right. What are we talking about today?
The power of systems.
Systemization.
Systemization.
Always a good topic.
Yeah,
I love this topic.
yeah. This is a good one. I think we've got some pretty good points to cover, and that's definitely one you're going to want to tune into and rewatch time and time again. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, let's get into the verse this morning and then we'll pray us in and we'll get going.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Our verse today is 2 Timothy 3:16. All scripture is breathed out by God, profitable for teaching and reproof, for correction, and for training in righteousness. I chose that one today because I truly believe the Bible is our ultimate SOP
Yeah.
for life.
I've heard different versions of this where it says all scripture is breathed, I think, or is inspired by the breath of God or something about the breath of God. I'm like,
Right.
that's kind of cool. Hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah, here it is. NIV says all scripture is God breathed and is useful for teaching. Yeah,
Yep.
that's cool. Hmm. Interesting. Yeah, good verse.
All right. You want to pray us in?
Sure. Yeah. God, just thank you for today. And thank you for another opportunity to get together with Mike Carson and everybody watching. And just pray over each and every business that is watching this today. Pray a blessing up over each business and those who will be watching it later. God, I just pray for all the guys and gals on the Veterans Honor Flight that took off this morning to DC. Just be with them, give them protection, give them a safe and fun day, and a day of remembrance, and a day that they will never forget. God, we just love you and thank you for today. Amen.
Amen. Thank you,
Sorry, I
buddy.
had to put a plug in there for the Veterans Honor Flight. So I've got to go twice. And
Well, now you got to explain why you did that.
yeah, okay. So Veterans Honor Flight is it's something. It's all over the country, but we have one. I have an airport. It's like 3 miles from my house, and so twice a year they take a plane full of veterans. There's usually about 80 to 100 veterans that they fly to Washington D.C. and they take them on a tour of DC, going to many of the different monuments and memorials. And man, it's incredible to be part of. The first time I got to go was with my great uncle Bob, and he was in the Army Air Corps during World War II. And I got some cool stories. I could do a whole podcast just talking about some stories he told me. But got to go with him and be with him. And when I got back, I've been fortunate to been able to go to DC about 3 times. And so I've already seen all the sites and all the towns. And I had somebody ask me, well, how was the, visiting Washington? How was the tour? And how was all the sightseeing? I'm like, man, the sightseeing was great. To see my great uncle just in some cases, I hate to say it this way, but break down a little bit and tear up, you know, and to be able to show him things he'd never been over the river. When he was stationed, he never got to go over the river into DC. So to be able to see him experience all that for the first time, that was my sightseeing.
That's pretty cool.
So, and then the second time I got to go was with a good friend of mine. He's passed away since as well, and he was in the army for 26 years, and he was in during the Korean War into the Vietnam War. He got out right before the mess really started happening in Vietnam. But um, as far as no, actually he didn't. He was in Korean at the tail end of Korean into Vietnam, and then yeah, ended up being an army recruiter for a long time. So it's a great experience if you've got a veterans honor flight that flies close to you. I'd suggest getting involved. Um, Go be part of the welcome crew, that just welcomes them home. That's the biggest, a huge part. We have like a big party that happens at the airport this evening.
That's cool.
Yeah, anything veterans honor flight.
All right, let's get into our topic here. So, how many of you guys out there are actually writing down your processes and recording what you do every single day?
Are you waiting for the hands to go up?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for answers.
Yeah.
TikTok, tumbleweeds.
Well, I tell you, this is a great topic, and even as a technician, you have a process and a procedure. Many of you don't even realize that you don't know it. So, George Gracie, wait, wasn't he like one of the MMA fighters? Or am I thinking of a different Gracie?
It might be a different one.
Yeah. Yeah. So
We got
processes,
one answer.
procedures.
JoJo said, "Not me yet."
Yeah, not you yet. Well, I'll tell you this: one of the first processes I'll talk about here in a little bit, and it's going to help all of you all out. I promise you. So we're going to cover. Let's talk about documenting processes. How can businesses effectively document their process? So how can you, as an appliance guy, as an electrician, as a heating air, whatever you may be watching this today, how can you effectively document your process?
Jason, did you ever document your processes when you had your electrical company?
Yeah, and the easiest way for me when I first started um, documenting and creating processes was I had an apprentice that was riding with me, and I literally told him, I said, throughout the entire day, I want you to write down every step that we do. That was the easiest thing for me to do. And from there, I was able to start creating processes. So it wasn't I thought all this in my head. It was simply, what did I do on this call? How did I talk to this customer? And that was my first experience with documenting a process. And the
So
cool,
that's a great idea.
yeah,
Just hire somebody to follow you around all day, every day,
hey,
and
for the right
document
amount,
everything
I'll
that you
come
do,
visit
and
your
then you can
shop.
translate that into an SOP.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great. I need to
So
do that.
yeah, it was really good on just being able to see what I do, what I'm doing well, what I'm not doing well, what I need to improve on. It was just a great ideal that probably a business coach gave me. I don't even remember where I got it from.
I think my first real kick in the face on making sure I had processes down is
Mhm.
when I got to a point where I needed my first employee,
Yeah,
and I had to do all the training. And I started out like, oh crap, I really need some processes,
yeah,
like really written down, because I wasn't really prepared for it. And the shame of that is I came from a background that was nothing but processes. So it was like I knew better,
yeah.
but I didn't have them down,
You know,
and even to this day, every time I replace a little piece of me with an employee, I I have processes, but then there's like all these new things, and then things change,
Hmm.
and it's like I got to go back and update the heck out of a lot of things.
Yep.
So it's like constantly evolving, and it's kind of daunting at times. Because we
Hmm.
have in my business, we've got over 200 SOPs,
True. Yeah.
so it's a lot.
Tabitha, how many SOPs do we have in our business now? Do you know? She's like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can imagine you guys got a lot too.
The 3-ring binder full, she says, but we actually have them in our OneDrive, and they are labeled um, by each department. So even
Yeah,
marketing.
everything in mine is all in my Google Drive.
Yeah.
I manage everything in the Google Drive.
I mean, from onboarding new team members to handling customer inquiries, there's an app for that. Tabitha says.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's part of a larger process. Without documentation, you know, chaos can just come about. Think about
Mhm.
McDonald's, right? This fast food giant. They're not successful just because of their tasty burgers. It's their meticulously documented processes, ensuring that whether you're in New York or Tokyo, you get the same Big Mac experience every time, right? So by documenting processes, businesses can scale effectively, delegate tasks with confidence, they can minimize errors. It's the foundation upon which successful businesses are built. Whether you like McDonald's or not, it's one thing they got down right is their systems and processes. So,
Yeah,
um,
you watch that movie, The Founder. I've said it
yeah,
before. The
yep,
Founder. If you watch that movie, you will understand efficiencies and processes
yep,
to the extreme. Like they really did it early in the 50s and 60s
yeah.
is
Well, there's
when Ray Kroc came into it all.
there's all kinds of tools you can use. There's flowcharts, checklists, there's manuals. There's all kinds of ways that you can document each step in detail. Like I mentioned, just starting out with a key employee, an apprentice, somebody riding along. If you don't have a process of how you run a service call, A, get with me. I can help you out with that. But B, have that guy write down your steps. And then you actually make a process out of that. And then you improve on it as you get better at it. Hey, that was really good what I said there. Let me write that in there. All right.
Yeah. It
So,
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how detailed it is, as long as you get something down. You can
yeah,
always refine it later.
stick with us for key number 3. Key
Yeah.
number 3, I'll tell you a little trick that I did when I first got started with something. Key number 3. So number 2, so we just talked about documenting processes. So number 2, let's talk a little bit about streamlining process. What are some strategies for streamlining operations within a business?
That's a tough one. I find that a little tough sometimes because it depends on the business, and
Yeah.
there's so many different ways that you can streamline any business, but you have to start with the simple things, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, it it seems like you have to break. You can make systems super complicated,
Hmm.
and I've done that. And you can go too detailed and too deep in the woods. But
Yeah.
if you can't come back to the core and just say, what is the most simple way to do this?
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now, who's really good at streamlining operations?
Who's that?
Lazy people.
Lazy
They will
people.
find the shortest path
Oh, yeah.
to getting something done possible.
Yep.
And so everybody hates lazy people, but they will. Oh, wait, there's something to be said about lazy people
Hmm.
because they will cut out all the stuff that doesn't matter
Hmm.
just to get the bare minimum done, right?
That's
And
good.
it's not a bad thing sometimes
Yeah.
when you look at it that way, because it's like they still got the minimum viable thing done without doing all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But as long as it's done properly, all the other stuff can be added on incrementally.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So it to me, it's you kind of have to look at it in a different way. You know, for example, if you think about Amazon
Yeah.
fulfillment centers,
Hmm.
they've streamlined operations to deliver packages with lightning speed.
Yep. Right to your
And
doorstep.
it's really simplified. And if you optimize your workflows, you reduce cost, obviously, productivity, but you also enhance customer satisfaction
Yep.
because like you said with McDonald's, it's a repeatable process.
Yeah.
Everyone knows what to expect. When you order from Amazon, you know exactly what to
Hmm.
expect. And when anything goes outside of that system and you got to wait 3 days for your package, now you're upset. And you're like,
Well, God forbid it takes 5 days.
why can't I have it in 2? They promised 2-day
It
delivery.
used to be 2 days. What happened?
Yeah, exactly. So,
Like I ordered a T-shirt yesterday, and it said, "Yeah, it'll be here Friday." And I'm like, "Oh, Friday? Oh wait, yeah, that's actually not too bad."
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, if you think just 10 years ago, how long we had to
Yeah,
wait for packages,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
not so bad.
yeah. They've definitely perfected the art of streamlining operation. That's for sure. So efficiency is definitely key when it comes to streamlining operation. Um, you want to regularly review existing process that you currently have or that you're creating to identify inefficiencies or bottlenecks. Um, Bottlenecks reminds me of Coke and Pepsi. We have a Pepsi plant right close to us as well. That was an interesting place to work for. I worked there for 4 months, by the way. So you got to look for opportunities to automate repetitive tasks. Software, House Call Pro, Service Works, Jobber, Workies. I mean, all these different CRMs have certain things that you can automate with. Um, you know, AI phones. We have AI phone reps that can answer your phones. I was talking to a business coach the other day, and one of the things that said while we were talking really hit me hard. And he said, if you are a business that's under $2 million in annual sales revenue, you should outsource as much as you can. Think about that. Under $2 million in revenue. How many businesses are under $2 million in revenue? That's a lot of businesses. That's a lot of home service businesses. But think about what you can outsource nowadays and how much you can take off your plate and automate even that will help you do what you do best to help you satisfy that client and take care of their needs and not having to worry about answering the phones or having to worry about scheduling the next call or having to worry about posting the next blog or updating your SEO, I just thought that was amazing what he said. I'm like, man, that's really good. That make if I would automated, if I would have had in my business the different things that I have now, I'm sitting here thinking, man, how much different would my business been 10 years ago, 20 years ago, right? But you have these processes at your fingertips to be able to utilize now. So why are you not using them? That's a big question.
Well, I mean, think about it, Jason. If you did this long ago, how much more would you have added years to your life
Mm.
because you didn't have the stress of
Yeah.
trying to do everything and trying to figure it all out?
Yep.
It's like you can outsource certain things to certain people who are experts in it, and they just get it done faster. And
Yeah.
I've said this many times. There's a book called Buy Back Your Time,
Yeah.
and I highly recommend you go read it because it will be an eye opener as to what your time itself, your own time, is actually how valuable it is,
Hmm.
and not just to you, but just for your business
Yeah.
compared to what you can, how much of that time you can buy back
Yeah.
for how little you can buy it back for.
I wish you could outsource exercising. You know, I think you and I would be in
You
a
know
lot better
what?
shape.
When you figure that one out, buddy, you let me know right away.
Shoot. All right. So let's talk about the next key topic here, and that's creating repeatable workflows. So far we've talked about documenting processes. Next, we talked about streamlining operations. So let's talk about creating repeatable workflows. All right. So I said if you'd stick with me, I tell you about this one. So this is kind of a workflow, but in 2004, we joined our first like business group. It was called Electrician Success International. We were one of the founding members of it. Success Group International is still around today, but um, I one of the things I got from that was just simply questions that you want to ask the customer, right? And it creates a script for you. So, what problems have you been have you been having? How long has this been going on? Has anybody else looked at this? Right? And in my teaching and coaching, I have these examples, but I also have above the line and below the line. As an accounting guy or gal, you might appreciate that. But above the line are questions that I want to ask before I even start turning a wrench. Below the line are questions I want to ask at some point during my service call just to help me get more familiar with their house, or maybe if there's other things that I can help them get involved with, right? Not sell. Did you hear that? Get involved with. There's a big difference between selling somebody and getting involved with something that they actually need, right? Um, so in 2004, I remember taking these questions and I had a translucent blue clipboard. I still remember it today. And I taped those questions to the back of that translucent blue clipboard because I didn't want the customer to know that I was reading off a script when all it was is I was just asking them questions. But I noticed that the more I talked to them, the more I would forget what their answer was. And so then I got to thinking, okay, I'm no different than a doctor. A doctor takes notes, he writes them down in front of you. He's got certain questions. She's got certain things that she's wanting to say, and they write them down. So why am I embarrassed about this? So I took that out, I put it on top of the clipboard, and I would say, "Hey, I'm going to take some notes as we go along here. Is that okay?" Asking permission. Let them know right up front. I'm going to take some notes. I've maybe had 2 people in 25 years that said, "Why are you taking notes?" Well, just like a doctor, I just want to make sure that I remember the things that you say. So as I go through my service call, you know, I'm not getting any younger here. Help me out here, you know.
If
So
I
then it would
saw
be,
somebody doing that, I would think that they care more, honestly.
yeah,
They
exactly.
care to write things down.
So think about that. From that simple change, I was able to start, all right, here's my workflow. Think about that. I have my questions, I have my script, right? We all hate using the word scripting, but it's questions that help me with my house. And even as an appliance repair person, there are certain questions that you've got to know or you've got to understand. Hey, where's your electrical panel at in case I need to get to that? Something as simple as that. You may have to turn the dishwasher off. You may have to, if it's not cord and plug like it's supposed to be. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation for National Electrical Code. So just it gets down to the simple aspect. A repeatable workflow is like a well-oiled machine. It's going to help you run smoother, going to help you be more consistent, and predictability is a big, you know, let's talk about content creation. That's something that you're big on doing. So by establishing a repeatable workflow like you mentioned in your systems and processes, content creators, they can ensure that each piece meets quality standards and deadlines, right? So whether it's a podcast that you're doing every week or a monthly newsletter, repeatable workflows, they provide structure and reliability. They also help free up what? Free up time
Time.
and mental energy because it's something you don't have to think about. It's a repeated process. Why do you think these factories, there are so many factories that have a process and it's a repeatable workflow? Hey, uh, talking about Pepsi, right? The Pepsi can comes through the machine and I don't know, I was in vending, so I wasn't out on the factory floor. But you get the idea, right? So,
I think the biggest thing when someone's in this part of the process is they forget to test.
yeah,
You have to test different things to see what works best.
yeah.
And that goes with anything that you do. If you're not testing different things to see, okay, what and analyzing that test and like really
Mhm.
saying, I'm going to run this test for a finite amount of time.
Yep.
and I'm going to do it with so many customers. You
Yeah.
either do it over time, a finite amount of time, or a certain volume of customers.
Yeah.
That's the only way that you can measure it. And then you document and you
Yep.
track it and you monitor it as you do it, and you start seeing you will start seeing problems just surface like
Yeah.
crazy. And you're going to identify, wow, this works so much better and we have less problems.
Oh,
And this way it makes things faster, but maybe we have more problems. So
mm.
maybe it's not a good balance.
Then you got to take a step back and reevaluate. Yeah,
And
that's good,
and
Mike.
then you fine tune things,
Yeah.
So I think that's where a lot of people miss the mark, is they just document things and they create a workflow,
Mm.
but it still may not be the best workflow.
Yep. Got to always be testing. That's good. Always be, what is it? Always be ABC. Always be, yeah, I don't know what it was.
I don't either.
Yeah. But think about it. I came across a workflow when I was researching this and just looking at stuff I had on my computer, and it was our CSR call flow chart, and it's something that we still use today. They don't even realize they're using it, but it was created to help us create the process for it and the system for it. And so as I was reading through that, it was probably created 4 years ago, 3 years ago maybe, when we were doing some stuff, and I was like, wow, we still do this the same way, except nope, that's changed a little bit. Okay, that's changed a little bit. So yes, like you said, we tested it, and if it didn't work, you find a different flow, right? I think
Yeah.
breaking tasks down, sometimes it can just be very overwhelming and daunting, as you were mentioning, that to create this big, huge process and this workflow, just break it down. You know, if you're answering your own phones, break it down to the first, few seconds of that call. What are you saying? Are you just answering the phone? Hey, how can I help you? Or are you answering, hey, thank you for calling EJ's Appliance. This is Jason. How can I help you? That right there could be the very first start of your workflow on how to answer your phones, whether you're using somebody like us or doing it yourself, which, as we talked about, if you're not making 2 million or more, you should be using us. So break down those tasks into smaller, more manageable steps, right? I think that'll help out quite a bit. Like we mentioned, there's
Absolutely.
tons of templates. There's tons of different standardized processes that you can start with. Business coaches out there can help you with the stuff. So
We've
yeah,
got a huge SOP library over at Service Lines
huge,
Group.
a
Huge.
huge,
It's
huge
huge.
library.
It's the largest one for the service industry anywhere. I can say that.
If you have team members, a good key point here is to provide training for them, provide resources for them so they understand and they follow your workflows and your processes and your procedures. Um, yeah, I think that's good. Good. What do you think, Mike?
Well, let's talk about the benefits of
Well,
systemization.
as we go here, let me break and say if you've got a comment, don't hesitate to put something in the comment. If you'd like a topic in the future that we'd like for us to talk about in the future, put it in the comment. Don't hesitate to reach out even to us after the show and say, hey, got a question about this, or hey,
Yeah, we
can
need
we
to know
talk
what's
about
going to
this in the
help you
future?
guys.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So the benefits. Let's talk about the benefits.
Systemization is not just about efficiency. It's
It isn't
about scalability and resilience.
resilience.
And
Such a
I can
fancy
tell you
word.
right now, if if you want to build a business, I've said this before in multiple different avenues and venues. If you want to build a business that's going to be valuable someday, and I mean valuable in someone else's eyes,
Yeah.
if you want to, I've seen so many people, have their business for 30, 40 years, and then they want out and they can't sell their appliance repair business. They can't sell their electrical or plumbing or,
Yep.
HVAC business because it can't run without them. They are the business and they've
Yeah.
never built processes and systems that that business can run without them. And if you have all of that documentation as a package that you could say when you're ready to sell your business, and it makes it
Hmm.
attractive for someone else to say, I can put my own people in here and it'll still run
Yeah.
without this guy. And otherwise, why would somebody even remotely look at your business? Look
Hmm.
look at it from the outside point of view. Or if you were going to buy another business, are you buying a person that built it up themselves? No, they can leave. You're not going to buy a business and pay for that person. Otherwise you're just paying for their equipment and their truck and tools and parts that they might
Yeah.
have in stock, right?
Yep.
You're not buying an actual business. You're buying, at that point you might be dipping your toes into a territory, but you might as well just start up from scratch and
Yeah.
just go into that market at that point. But
Yeah.
if you're looking to buy a business, you're going to look at what systems they have in place, what processes they're all about, and can that business scale? Can
Yep.
it grow without that person at the helm? That's the big thing. And if you're looking to grow your business at all, you have to do this. You have to start documenting processes,
Yeah.
because you can't replace yourself if you can't teach others how to do it.
Yeah.
And it's as simple as that. And as a lot of business owners, and myself included, I was in this mindset thinking, if I have to do everything in my business to do it right, and that my way is the only good way to do it, and no
Mm.
one else can do it my way.
Yep.
And I found out that's the biggest pile of bull crap that
Yep.
there's ever been put in anybody's mind, including my own. And
Gotta
you
preach. Come
can't.
on, Mike.
I I I have this is something else I say all the time. If I can replace myself in one area, right? Say it's answering the phones,
Hmm.
and that person, no matter how much I train them, they don't answer their phones or handle a customer exactly the way I would as the business owner. Who cares? I had to suck it up and finally say, who cares? Are they doing 80% or better? Are they
Let's
80% of the way there?
let's go 85%. That's our minimum standard.
Well, that's fine. That say it's 85. But
Still not perfect,
it's not perfect.
but it's yeah.
But perfect is that's relative,
Yeah.
and that's a very opinionated, right?
And are you going to be perfect on the phone? Probably not. Yeah.
No, not 100% of the time.
Yeah.
So your idea of 100% in reality is probably 80% too. And if you just get somebody that's 80% of the way there, you can nudge and train them the rest of that,
Free up your time.
15, 20% that you need them to get there,
Yep.
and do that over time. I mean, you got to remember you've been doing this quite a while,
Hmm.
and they're a newer employee,
Yeah. Think about
or a
that as your
newer outsourced company that you're working with.
apprentice rolling with you. Same process, right?
Yeah.
What can they do? If they're just starting out with you, have them start cleaning up, right? If they're green as can be, have them just start cleaning up the area that you've just done work in. If I'm the type that I would clean up as I go, but I did have some guys that would wait till the end of the job before they cleaned everything up, which drove me nuts. Especially when it comes to like little scraps when you're, peeling wire and stuff. But anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. But I would have apprentices start cleaning up. They would start loading stuff into the truck while I am doing the paperwork with the customer. When they got to a point where, okay, that was good. That's one thing I didn't have to do. Then if it was cleaned up before I was done with the paperwork, they would come sit with me as I was talking with the homeowner on the paperwork so they could start hearing and listening to those conversations I was having about the paperwork, right? So it's all the little stuff. What can you have, like you mentioned, somebody do that maybe not as good as you, but they're good enough, right? They're good enough to get you. cleaning up a house. Come on, yeah, okay, I'll leave that one.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, you get somebody say that's they're 80% there, right?
Yeah.
Now that one piece that you hired them to do,
Hmm.
you just took 80% of that off your plate.
Yeah. There is
I mean,
a
just think about that. 80% just of that role and task just got taken off
Yep.
your plate. Now you've just got to worry about the remaining 20% in training.
I know many plumbing companies. For me, I can remember it started with plumbing, but I'm sure I know electricians. I've got some electrician friends that do this as well. But they actually started putting an apprentice in the service truck with a full blown licensed plumber out on the call because they knew the efficiency would go up with that apprentice doing all the little crappy stuff, pun intended, and let that plumber do the main things, right? Same thing with
Mhm.
electricians. So when you're running home service calls, so think about that in your appliance business. Well, what can you hire somebody to do? So let's say you have a son that wants to get into the trades or a daughter that wants to get in the trades. Have them start running calls with you, and have them start doing the little stuff, right? And start training them. And eventually you may have somebody that takes over your business and you can sit there and collect the checks. Think it
Absolutely.
so
It's
think about
it's the
Starbucks.
only way to grow a business. It's the
Yeah.
only way.
Think about Starbucks and the global expansion of Starbucks. Not the best coffee in the world. Certainly probably one of the most expensive coffees out there, but through their systemization, they've replicated their coffee houses in over like 80 countries in in the world, right? I can think of we have 3 just within probably 6 miles of here that I can think of. It's a Starbucks, it's a coffee house. Now you got 7 Brew coming in and there's another one coming in right behind it. It's coffee, $7 for a stinking coffee. I'm like, "Yeah, that's like 50 cents. I'm good."
Yeah.
But through their processes, empowering employees, they've just created this unparalleled growth and success, right? They have people standing in line for franchises because they know once the door opens, they're gonna start making money. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Systems foster innovation, fosters a culture of continuous improvement, and sets the stage for what? Long term prosperity. That's why people are buying into Chick fil A, why people are buying into Starbucks and McDonald's still, because it's long term proven prosperity.
So I got a quick story. A very good friend of mine, he was the lead HR guy for Starbucks corporate.
Hmm.
And he told me a lot about their systems after he went there. And he had worked for all these mega companies like that in that role. And so we're on the phone talking, and he started telling me, you know, how their systems are so well laid out that there's no real problem when they have to let people go, or if they have an issue with employees or management in any capacity from
Hmm.
top to bottom. And I'm like, okay, that kind of makes no sense. But he said the systems are so well done that if something were to happen and something were to break down and an employee messed up,
Yeah.
or a situation happened, no matter what it was, he said the first place that they go is they look at the system. They don't look at what the employee did wrong. They look at the system and say,
Mm.
what is wrong with the system that
Yep.
allowed this to happen?
Hmm.
And then they find that hole and they fix it in the system.
Yeah.
Now, that if that situation, when they look at it that way and they find there is no problem with the system, then they look at the employee and say, did the employee follow the system?
Yeah.
And why not?
That's good.
Now and then they look at it as, was the employee fully trained on that system?
Mm.
They always look to blame the system first.
That's good.
Okay. And training the employee on that system is part of the system. So they look at the system first, and then they look at the system again from a different point of view. They never go immediately to blame the employee.
Yeah.
Because they have to take ownership at their level.
Yep.
And then if they find out the employee still didn't follow the system, and that's where everything broke down, whose fault is it? And it's not to find who to blame, it's to find the whole
and to make it better.
And if the employee is the problem, why was the employee the problem? Why did the employee not follow the system?
Yep.
Why did they just choose to ignore it? Now they can take action, and they have absolute justifiable cause for termination, or remedying an issue with an employee, or new training. They know the exact action step that they have to take.
Yeah.
And what they have to document. So it made a lot of sense when he was telling me this. And I'm like, this is the way every system should be.
Yeah. And think about that from a point of view as a business owner. If you have multiple locations, like if you have 3 or 4 locations surrounding a metropolitan area or something. I'll give you an example. I worked for Wendy's when I was 17 years old. I worked for Wendy's in Benton, and they said at one time, "Hey, we need some help down at the Marion store. Could you go down there and help?" I'm like, I guess so. I mean, what am I going to be doing? Same thing you do here. And so there, I literally started working at Marion and Benton. It's the same process. It's the same. I mean, the store was a little bit different layout wise, but everything else was the same. So think about that from a business perspective. If you've got 2, 3, 4 multiple locations, you train and get documentation right or good for one area, and somebody else needs help in another area, just send them. That's the beautiful thing about systems and processes and procedures, right? Well, we've went on for quite a long time today. This is a good topic.
Yeah, we can wrap this up.
The power of systems, documenting processes, streamlining operations, creating repeatable workflows, and benefits of systemization for growth. It's a good topic, but we don't have a dad joke yet. We can't leave without a dad joke. I think I got a pretty good one today.
I have a bad dad joke today. I'm going to save everybody.
So there was a man that sued an airline company after it lost his luggage. Sadly, he lost his case. And with that, we'll wrap it up.
All right,
Thanks
everybody,
for being here.
Thanks for watching.
We'll see you next week.
Have a great week.